In an age of infinite information, we are growing increasingly ignorant. We live in a time where knowledge seems boundless. Every day we are bombarded with a flood of data, news, articles, videos, opinions. In theory, we are more informed than any generation before us. And yet, a troubling sense lingers. We have never had so much access to the world, and at the same time, we have never been so incapable of understanding it. This is the paradox of information. The more we know, the more ignorant we become. Albert Einstein once said, "The mind that opens to a new idea never returns to its original size." But what happens when that open mind is constantly assaulted by fragmented, shallow, and contradictory information? What should expand our consciousness ends up diluting it, like water poured over dry sand, seeping only into the surface layers, never nourishing the roots of true understanding. The problem isn't information itself, it's how we consume it. We feast on data like mental fast food, quick, easy, and often utterly devoid of real substance. A tweet, a 30-second video, a meme shared thousands of times. Each promises knowledge, yet delivers distraction. We are trapped in an illusion, believing that knowing something is the same as truly understanding it. And so, wisdom gives way to superficiality. In modern life, this manifests in quiet yet powerful ways. Open your social media feed and you'll see it. People repeating slogans without questioning, sharing information without verifying, judging complex situations with short, punchy phrases. The like culture creates instant validation that demands no reflection, only reaction. We are becoming like automatic reflections of external stimuli, more likely to repeat than to think. And this dynamic isn't confined to the virtual world. At work, in political debates, in everyday conversations, the capacity for critical analysis is constantly sacrificed for speed. It's easier to accept ready-made answers than to question, safer to echo than to challenge. The mind, once hailed as humanity's greatest instrument, now bends toward intellectual laziness. The paradox is cruel. In theory, we have everything to be more conscious, more critical, more enlightened. In practice, we become prisoners of a cycle of information that distracts, fragments, and infantilizes us. As if we were surrounded by an infinite library, yet unable to open a single real book. But if everyone has access to information, why is collective ignorance growing? Why does the world seem increasingly dominated by impulsive decisions, shallow opinions, and crises of understanding? What turns available knowledge into widespread stupidity? Later, we will explore the psychological mechanisms that make us vulnerable to this, revealing not just what is happening, but why we so easily surrender to the mediocrity of thought. Because to understand the collective mind is to understand the very essence of our era, and perhaps to find a way out. If Chapter 1 exposed the paradox of information, this chapter uncovers the heart of human vulnerability. Our minds, by nature, are easily shaped by the collective. Gustave Le Bon, in his 19th century work The Crowd, a study of the popular mind, warned that an isolated mind is rational, a mind in a crowd is emotional. Individual wisdom, when confronted with the force of the masses, often bends under the pressure of the group. But why does this happen? The answer lies in our biology and evolutionary history. We are social creatures. Our brains were shaped to live in groups, to seek acceptance, protection, and belonging. And this need, which once ensured our survival, now makes us susceptible to manipulation, polarization, and uncritical repetition of ideas. Daniel Kahneman describes in Thinking, Fast and Slow the two systems that govern our decisions. System 1, fast, intuitive, and emotional, and System 2, slow, analytical, and deliberate. Most of our modern interactions rely on System 1. We react instinctively, share without reflection, judge without thought. And on a mass scale, these automatic reactions create alarming phenomena: the viral spread of misinformation, online mob mentality, the escalation of hate and intolerance without rational basis. Imagine a social network as a vast, distorted mirror. Every like, every comment, every share creates an echo of approval that reinforces behaviors and beliefs. Instead of challenging ideas, the crowd amplifies them and reason becomes scarce. It's as if collective intelligence is constantly being drained, replaced by an emotional fever that spreads without warning. In daily life we see this everywhere. Viral trends appear out of nowhere, often senseless or factually baseless, yet they become truths simply because millions agree, comment, or share. Political discussions are reduced to slogans, complex debates collapse into attack memes. The depth of thought is sacrificed on the altar of instant reaction. And the most dangerous part, this doesn't happen only to others. Each of us, at some point, succumbs to the urge to conform, to echo popular opinions, to abandon critical questioning for social comfort. Collective stupidity is not a distant phenomenon, it is intimate, personal, and we feed it every day. When we surrender to the group, we sacrifice reason, and this is only the beginning. The human mind, designed for collaboration, becomes an easy target for emotional manipulation. And the consequence isn't just individual, it is social, cultural, existential. Here lies the cruel paradox. The louder the crowd screams, the more compelled we feel to speak, to react, to opine even without thinking. Every click, every share, every unconscious agreement is another brick in the wall of collective ignorance. But if we are all trapped in this cycle, and our minds are constantly pulled by the force of the crowd, then the real question isn't just, how do we resist? It's, who still remembers how to think for themselves? We live in an age where attention is humanity's most precious, and most wasted, commodity. Minds once capable of deep, sustained reflection now drown in an unending stream of stimuli. Every notification, every alert, every like, acts like a small dose of dopamine, reinforcing the habit of reacting before thinking. The modern world doesn't teach us to think, it conditions us to react. Imagine the mind as a digital swamp. Calm on the surface, but beneath it, currents of distraction and shallowness drag deeper thoughts down into the murky depths. Every 30-second video, every sensational headline, every shared meme is sediment, slowly piling up, making the mental terrain heavier, harder to navigate. Depth of thought becomes rare, almost exotic, like an endangered species. Instant validation only makes this worse. In social media culture, opinions are measured in likes, value is measured in followers, self-worth is measured in approval from others. Reflection is no longer necessary, performance is enough. And the problem is that this performance distances us from ourselves. We start living for the gaze of others, shaping our beliefs and actions not by what we judge as right, but by what will be approved, shared, or celebrated. This culture of distraction and immediate approval is not just a digital phenomenon. It seeps into every aspect of modern life. At work, quick decisions replace careful analysis. In politics, slogans replace reasoned debate. In personal relationships, deep conversations give way to shallow, instant exchanges. Time for reflection, space to think for oneself, becomes a luxury few can afford. And as we distract ourselves, critical thinking quietly fades away. The mind that could question, investigate, connect ideas now settles for fragments of information and fleeting emotions. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. The more we react without thinking, the more the culture of immediacy and validation grows, and the harder it becomes to reclaim intellectual autonomy. So, if our attention is constantly hijacked, if our emotions are manipulated to keep us engaged, how do we rescue critical thought? How do we escape this digital swamp that pulls us away from ourselves and subjects us to collective mediocrity? Later we will explore the social and existential consequences of this dynamic, and why collective stupidity is not just a philosophical abstraction. It shapes our world in ways we feel every day even if we rarely notice. If the previous chapters revealed the paradox of information, the vulnerability of the mind, and the relentless distraction of digital culture, this chapter exposes the price we pay, the real impact of collective stupidity on society and on ourselves. The loss of critical thinking is not merely an intellectual problem, it is a phenomenon that transforms our reality, our relationships, and our very identity. Imagine a society where superficiality is celebrated and questioning is discredited, where slogans and memes replace deep debate, and the popularity of an idea matters more than its truth. This is the world we inhabit today. Impulsive political decisions, social crises born from distorted interpretations, amplified intolerance. All of it stems from the weakening of critical thought on a massive scale. But the consequences are not limited to the collective, they are deeply existential. Each time we surrender to immediacy, external validation, or conformity, we lose a bit of our autonomy. We begin to react to external pressures instead of reflecting on our values and convictions. Individual identity dissolves into the group, and our perception of reality becomes shaped by echoes and repetition. It is a silent erosion of mental freedom. Media, politics, advertising, social networks, all contribute to this phenomenon. Every stimulus designed to capture our attention strengthens the wall of collective ignorance. And even those who recognize the problem often feel powerless, like spectators trapped in a storm they cannot control. The result is a sense of alienation, surrounded by people yet feeling alone, surrounded by information yet feeling uninformed, surrounded by opinions yet feeling disoriented. Philosopher Max Horkheimer of the Frankfurt School warned about the culture industry, where society becomes captive to entertainment and consumption while critical capacity is undermined. Today, this critique resonates even more on social networks. Every viral opinion, every trend consumed without reflection, contributes to a world where superficiality dominates and reason retreats. And so we arrive at a crucial point: collective stupidity is not merely a social phenomenon, it is existential. It shapes who we are, how we think, and how we relate to one another. Every decision we make, every reaction we emit without reflection, strengthens the cycle that binds us. And this is not just an external observation. It is a truth that touches each of us. But if these forces shape our society and corrode our minds, is there still a way to resist? Can we still cultivate critical thought amid the chaos, reclaim the autonomy of the mind, and rebuild a form of consciousness capable of standing against collective mediocrity? In the final chapter, we will explore these paths, not as easy answers but as possibilities for resistance. Because even at the height of distraction, conformity, and superficiality, the spark of critical thinking can still survive. If the previous chapters revealed the paradox of information, the vulnerability of the mind, constant distraction, and the consequences of collective stupidity, this chapter invites us to ask: is there still hope? Can we reclaim the ability to think for ourselves amid this sea of superficiality and conformity? The answer is not simple, and there are no shortcuts. Resisting collective mediocrity requires courage. The courage to slow down, to question, to remain attentive while everyone around us succumbs to haste, distraction, and easy approval. It is an effort that demands mental and emotional discipline, but also the awareness that each action, each deliberate choice to reflect, is a small rebellion against the culture that fragments us. One of the most powerful forms of resistance is the cultivation of attention. Reading deeply, reflecting on complex ideas, writing and organizing thoughts, these are acts that strengthen critical thinking. Every book read, every concept pondered, is a brick in the reconstruction of intellectual autonomy. It is not about accumulating information, it is about transforming knowledge into understanding, and understanding into wisdom. Another path is constant questioning. Ask not only, what is true, but also, why do I think this way? Where does this opinion come from? Who benefits if I accept this without reflection? Critical thinking is born from doubt, not certainty. Doubt, when carefully cultivated, is the key that opens the doors to mental freedom. It is also essential to create spaces of silence and introspection, away from the relentless flow of stimuli. Technology, social media, and compulsive entertainment drain our capacity for reflection. Slowing down, disconnecting, observing the world without digital filters, is a quiet but powerful act of resistance. Metaphorically, we can imagine the mind as a candle in the midst of a storm of strong winds. Every distraction is a gust threatening to snuff out the flame. But if we protect the light, if we care for it, it does more than survive. It illuminates the path not just for ourselves but for those around us as well. The rise of collective stupidity is not inevitable. It thrives when we surrender, when we believe that questioning is futile, that thinking is exhausting, that conforming is easier. But every conscious act of reflection, every decision to slow down, every effort to think critically is a form of resistance, silent, yet profound. We return finally to the question that has threaded through this entire journey: why is critical thinking disappearing? Why does collective stupidity spread so easily, while those who dare to reflect seem increasingly isolated? What we realize is that there is no simple answer. The rise of ignorance is not just an external phenomenon. It is also a quiet choice each of us makes every day, when we give in to haste, distraction, and easy validation. Yet at the same time, the possibility of resistance exists. It lies in slowing down, in questioning, in protecting one's own attention. It lies in cultivating doubt and deep reflection, even when everything around demands conformity. And here lies the final paradox. The world may grow ever louder, more superficial, more conformist, but the human mind, that spark of critical consciousness, can still ignite a light. A light that, even if small, has the power to illuminate not just one's own path, but also open clearings within the collective darkness. So the reflection remains open. like an echo that insists on lingering. In a century dominated by immediacy and mediocrity, what will your mind's role be? Will you surrender to the tide of the crowd, or will you choose to think, to question, and to kindle your own light even alone? Perhaps there is no definitive answer. Perhaps the only certainty is that as long as there are those who dare to reflect, critical thinking will never vanish entirely. And for that reason, every moment of awareness is an act of resistance, a silent, yet powerful gesture against the erasure of reason. If you are questioning the world as I do, join me. This channel is for those who refuse easy answers. Subscribe and await the next video.